Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of March 18th to the 24th of 2024. All right, so this week we have a lunar eclipse at the end of the week on Sunday. And so it is definitely a momentum building week as we are getting to the heightened energy of the lunar month. Now, lunar eclipses are usually quite important, even though this one is a partial one. In regards to shifts and changes to our life path. So as we do get to the weekend, really good to see what new perspectives come in and perhaps what are some things we can make some shifts and changes with to further our life path energy. Now, right at the beginning of the week here on Monday, we have Mars going into Aquarius. And so adding to more of that visionary side, we've already had Venus here. So when it comes to our actions and where we're setting goals, taking initiative in our life, there's been a lot more of that responsible Capricorn energy in the sky. And so here now, perhaps more of that listening to our excitement and getting more in touch with our visionary side can be more of a theme this week. Now, the aspects, really just one important one this week on Thursday. Venus, the planet of our values, will be passing over grounded Saturn. And so this is perhaps a new beginning in regards to our values getting quite grounded, maybe some new responsibilities in life, and perhaps in those relationships as well, maybe a bit of that responsible, mature energy coming out of that, really starting a new beginning for the year in that context. All right, so those are the major things as well as some of these other minor aspects. So let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, March 18th. And as you can see, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. If you are new to this channel, definitely check out the link down below for more information, especially if you notice that the signs are different from what you're used to hearing the placements of. Now, let's go ahead and do a bit of a recap because, we do have the sign change this week with Mars. And so let's go ahead and get a good handle on all the placements. So we've had the Sun and Mercury in Pisces, and this has really been started since about a week ago when we started the lunar month, when we had the last new moon. And so it definitely is a time of focusing more on more receptivity in our life. How can we connect more with our soul right now? How can we do things that are more for peace and spiritual health, mental health, more of this receptive side? And so anything that is in alignment with this, I think, is fantastic. It can be a great time for things like spirituality, psychology, and even imagination and creativity. Anything that helps us connect more with our soul, do what's more soul fulfilling. And again, access things like our intuition, our imagination, and more of those ethers or the unconscious with all this Pisces energy in play. But again, for the intention of more, I think, peace and spiritual wellness in our lives. Now, Mars going into Aquarius adds to the Aquarius energy. The new moon was right in between Aquarius and Pisces. And so it definitely is a week now with perhaps even more of that visionary side. So Venus has been here. It's been great to see the value of the future aspirations we might have, the future in general, enjoying connecting more to that visionary side. And now with Mars, in regards to our actions and our initiatives, our motivations, our drives, and in many ways how we're expressing ourselves. So a lot of that more fire energy now introduced with a bit of listening to our excitement, getting in touch with that more freedom-oriented side of ourselves, and again, that visionary side. So a great time to be, forward-thinking like this, getting in touch with those future visions, and really challenging the status quo, I think, in regards to our own status quo, but likely also the collective status quo as well, because, of course, in order for things to change, we do have to be willing to challenge existing frameworks and structures. So it's definitely a great time of doing that, I would say, as it's been, but this week now with Mars entering Aquarius as well. So definitely the mix in the sky between the visionary Aquarius and the receptive Pisces, doing what's important in a future visionary sense and also on a soul in soul-guided sense. So let's go ahead and start here with Monday. No major aspects on Monday, but the moon will be in Gemini. And this is still the first quarter moon, which is the more action-oriented phase of the lunar cycle, which we likely felt the weekend prior, just Sunday prior to this. And here we could say the action is how can we cultivate that receptivity of Pisces, but at the same time, really the practicality of Gemini. These two signs are very different from each other. They do square each other in the sense that we have on one hand spiritual, more emotional, and then on the other more practical, more rational. And so how can we integrate these two very different energies? And I think a great way of doing this is to really do what's soul-fulfilling for us, of course, with Pisces, but in a very practical and willing to learn sort of way. So what we could say is embodying both the soul and the mind, or the unconscious and the more rational consciousness, and anything that does integrate both coming into the week, I think is a great way of working with this first quarter moon. Now, as we start to get into Tuesday and Wednesday, the moon will be going into Cancer here. So Tuesday, Wednesday, a good time for creating that safe and secure environment. Cancer the crab is all about creating that protective environment for ourselves and others. For ourselves, a good time to practice things like self-care, self-nurturance, maybe reflecting a little bit on the past, maybe connecting to our personal life a bit. But of course, in those relationships and with others, also connecting with those that are important to us emotionally, and perhaps introducing some of that caring and nurturing energy as well. So likely some themes around that, but again, just really good to cultivate that kind of energy here Tuesday, Wednesday. On Wednesday, we have Mercury passing over Chiron. It's nothing major, but it is nice to see that it could be a good day for perhaps some healing. And maybe some of the things that we could be learning, a bit curious about, similar to that Gemini energy, could be quite healing and therapeutic. So a good day for just generally study, learning all this, but also not only noticing that that's, healing, but also that, we might even be able to understand more about ourselves on a deeper level like this. So if you're using the mind, you're using that interest for healing, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, whatever it is, could be a great day for this. But again, just generally being open to learning and even communication as well can be quite healing and therapeutic with this conjunction. And we could notice maybe even some new beginnings in that regard. For those of you that are particularly in a healing time of your life right now, this could be an important conjunction as it could symbolize a new beginning for you in that realm. Now, as we do get into what will be Thursday time, this is when Venus will be passing over Saturn, starting the yearly cycle with Venus and Saturn. This can mean that things do get more grounded in regards to our values. And so valuing, I think, responsibility, maturity, discipline in our lives, more of a long-term view in our lives. And also, as oftentimes Venus can represent relationships, maybe a new beginning there as well, where our relationship life is also getting a dose of that responsible or mature energy with Saturn. So again, great to set new intentions around anything that is more long-term like that, whether it comes from our values, even from finances or resources, and relationships, I think can be great. But again, we could notice some new beginnings from here nonetheless, so it's just a good time to listen and set some new intentions for those kinds of things here around Thursday. And Thursday does have a minor aspect. The sun will be sextiling Pluto. So maybe noticing just a little bit of self-empowerment on Thursday, maybe a little more willingness to express ourselves in the sense of facing fears maybe even, or empowering ourselves or reclaiming our power in some way. It can be just a bit of an opening for that on Thursday. Now, Thursday is when the moon will shift into Leo for pretty much the whole rest of the week until the partial lunar eclipse on Sunday. And so all the way up until Sunday, really good for that self-expression. Leo is all about connecting more to our hearts and doing things that are more about what we love, what we're passionate about, and again, just expressing ourselves. So a good time for all of the interests and matters of the heart this Thursday through Saturday. And again, this is going to be more of the momentum building phase. It's the gibbous phase of the lunar cycle. And so as we approach the full moon, noticing more of the perhaps energy and increasing awareness or insights, and in this case, a bit of support, I think, for the self-expression in general. Now, the lunar eclipse that is going on here over the Sunday time period, we probably will be feeling as early as Friday, Saturday into the weekend, as we do tend to notice these kinds of energies a few days before and a few days after, especially if they're important, like lunar eclipses are. Now, again, it is a partial lunar eclipse, so it's not as strong as a more exacting one, but still, nonetheless, it's an excellent weekend for a bit of a new perspective. Okay, so eclipses are very spiritual times, and especially when we have those that are next to the south node. Okay, so we'll always have a new or full moon next to one of the nodes when we're dealing with an eclipse. But the south node is the past life energy. Okay, this is the more yin energy. This is the more spiritual energy. So, for example, the Hindus see this as our past lives and even our past karma. And so full moons like this or lunar eclipses like this can really illuminate that. And so that's why it's so important to really listen. Now, normally full moons are a time of more action, as it is that, illuminating phase of the cycle and the heightened energy of the cycle. So it is this idea of certainly taking action in our lives. It's the heightened energy of the lunar cycle, but in the way of being mindful and aware of what could be coming up here for what you might say is karmic resolution or soul resolution, depending on how you see that. So it's the magnification, it's the expansion, it's the awareness of the spiritual world within us, of our life path in the context of our path behind us. Maybe there's going to be some things that might come into your life that might involve, maybe past relationships, past things, and, again, perhaps kind of karmic in nature, but it's again for that resolution. And so usually with the south node, the remedy or the best way we've figured out how to work with it is in a more yin way. And yin means less action, less doing, less trying to even figure it out on a rational, conscious level, and more about making peace with it, letting it be, and releasing it and clearing it as a result. So I want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not saying to push any of this away. There's a very clear difference between pushing away energy and allowing it to pass through. So yin meaning to pass through or to receive. And so to be aware, to welcome it in, to be conscious of it, but to allow those energies to naturally work themselves out is usually a good way of working with eclipse energy, south node eclipse energy. So in this case, great to be aware from whatever insights come in, new perspectives or things that come in. It's great to maybe make some shifts and changes based on that awareness, because with this insight, again, it may not be very rational or conscious insight, but a perhaps type of spiritual insight. But that feeling it and attuning to it can be very important. And from there, gaining that awareness, spiritual awareness of making some shifts and changes. And so the shifts and changes collectively are about cultivating more of the healthier qualities of Virgo. So Virgo is all about improvement and refinement. And so, of course, there can be unhealthy ways of doing this, which can be over improving perfection, getting too much into the details. Too much doing can be a Virgo thing. And so if those kinds of qualities are manifesting in your life, again, it's a great time to be aware of them. Let the unhealthy ones pass through so that the new ones can come in. And the new ones here, the healthier, balanced Virgo energies, we could say, is all about healthfully improving, right? So focusing on what we do have control over, not getting too detailed with it either, but always striving towards improvement and growth and development. And at the end of the day, the thing we have the most control over is ourselves. And that's why Virgo is the maiden, which is about self-control, self-improvement. And so in that context, I think it's great. And that balanced Virgo energy, you can see, sounds a lot like Pisces, right? To have more of a, with Pisces is to be more present and to let go of what's outside of our control as well. So this is where we get to the balance point between the nodes and really the balance point of the lunar eclipse in this case, since of course the sun and in this case Mercury will also be here in Pisces. So this balance between doing and being, work and rest, what's important on a physical level and what's important on a spiritual level is, I think, a major theme. And again, from any insights, we could be making some shifts and changes along our life path to facilitate this health. We could think of Virgo as the physical health, Pisces as the mental, emotional, spiritual health. And so how can we balance these out for greater health in general in our lives, and greater beingness in general, and a greater sense of going about life? These are very spiritual signs. That Pisces is the last sign of the Zodiac, where we come to these lessons around really how to live life in many ways, and in a way that's more peaceful and at peace. But of course, with the Virgo, also focusing on healthy ways of what we do have control over. All right, and it's worth mentioning that the lunar eclipse will be opposite Neptune, as the sun's still close to Neptune, but this is all just very much the same energy with all this in Pisces. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and so it goes without saying here that with the opposition to Neptune, it's very much like the opposition to Pisces that we just talked about. All right, everyone, so I want to go in a little bit of detail for you on that with the lunar eclipse, but again, just good to listen, see what shifts and changes are happening there, and then slowly incorporate them into next week. It's worth mentioning also that Venus will be sextiling Jupiter while that's going on Sunday, and so there could be a little bit of an opening for a bit of inspiration or open-mindedness in our lives, and maybe in the context of our values and relationships. All right, but let's do a recap on the most important things. We could say there's about 3 important things this week. One is in the context that Mars is going into Aquarius, adding to that visionary energy. Okay, so it's definitely a week of the balance between vision and receptivity. As we get to about midweek, the second thing is that Venus will be over Saturn. And so this is a new beginning to our values and our relationships in a yearly sense, and in the context of responsibility, patience, and discipline. Even though we've had less of that Capricorn energy now in the context of Venus, it's definitely great to set some new intentions there on that level. And then the last thing is, of course, the lunar eclipse. So as we approach that, gearing up for some new perspective shifts in our life, and based on whatever insights do come in from that lunar eclipse, can help us make some of these changes to our life path, which again should be more yin in nature, should come in more naturally in nature, nothing to force, nothing to get too yang about, because the South Node promotes more of that yin approach to things. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you haven't yet gotten your true sidereal report listing all of your signs, there's a link down below for that. It goes through all the descriptions of all of your signs using this true sidereal system. So there's a link down below if you haven't yet checked it out. But again, have a great week, everyone. Have a great lunar eclipse. And I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.